Hey, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural edition of this brand new iteration of Tough Bumps. My name is Matt Connarton, and joining me, of course, our partner in crime on Tough Bumps and the originator of the podcast, actually, Erich Pilcher is here. Hello, Erich.
Hello, yes. New version of this. It's certainly going to be interesting.
Yes. I'm very happy that you asked me to do this. We should explain to people. Tough Bumps was a podcast that you had started in, was it 2019?
Yes, I believe either 2018 or 2019 with my cousin Austin. We
Yes.
had kind of started it and we did it as kind of a weekly recap show where we would
Hmm.
talk about things that happened throughout the week in pro wrestling. We would cover some news stories
Yeah.
and then wrap it up with a story about someone who was probably, well, we called it the dum dum of the week,
Yeah.
where someone just did something really dumb and we found that we had multiple people on that segment multiple times.
Hmm.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about that as
Yeah.
the show progresses.
Yeah.
Those people that just can't seem to get out of their own way.
Right.
But the idea for me came to bring it back because just pro wrestling has exploded and it feels as if we're kind of at a crux where we're getting away from sports entertainment and more back towards professional wrestling. Like that pendulum has swung.
Hmm.
And it's easier to talk about pro wrestling than it is sports entertainment.
Sure. Um, so how many episodes did you do of the original version of the show? Do you know?
I want to say we did, it was very short lived.
Yeah.
Basically, I started a new job that took up a lot of my time. Austin was working on graduating high school. So that we kicked it around a little bit, bringing it back. And finally, I just asked him if he wanted to, and he has a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. Hopefully, he contributes
Hmm.
from time to time, as it is open to him and a few of our buddies
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
them to come in and contribute. But yeah, no, like media ill will
Sure. Sure.
there. I mean, he is my cousin. Love him to death. There's 18 years difference between us, but that was the other thing that we liked is kind of had the old guard, the old school mentality, which was me, and the new school mentality, which was him, and kind of rubbed off each other that way.
And if people are curious, the original, those original episodes, I don't know how many of them are on there, but it is available on SoundCloud for people who want to go back and check it out.
Yeah, I think they're really good. I think, it's two guys talking about something they love, and, some people would accuse us of being negative. And I think when you're passionate about something, negativity is an emotion that's easy to come by.
Sure. Um, Now, I've always wanted to do. I was pleased when you came to me with this because I've always wanted to do a podcast about this subject. I've been a fan of pro wrestling since I was a kid, as I'm sure as I know you have as well. You even more so than me because you've consumed a lot more wrestling, a lot more independent wrestling, for example, than I have. But I've been a fan since I was a kid, and I've wanted to do this. I've been I first started podcasting before the term podcast was even a word, when we were still calling it internet radio. So that's how long I've been podcasting, but I've never done a wrestling show, and I've always wanted to because it is something that I'm fascinated by, and I do consume a lot of content And it's great I was happy when you asked me to do this with you, this relaunch of Tough Bumps, because, obviously you and I, we know that we work well together.
Yes.
You've been a part of Matt Connarton Unleashed over the years with the film reviews and other content. And so this seems like a natural fit. And for those who are listening to the show, we're going to put it up on YouTube and everything, but for now, at least in the very beginning, at least for the first episode, and we'll see, we're just putting this out as audio only. But I'm sure we'll go to video in the future. We look pretty good here on this video. So,
I mean, I would say you probably, I don't know, have gotten more sleep than I.
Yeah.
Today.
Not necessarily. I don't sleep that much.
I went to bed at like 8:30 this morning and was up at noon. So,
yeah, because of your job, you keep unusual hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and Sundays are my day off. So I tell everyone Sundays are my day where I go to bed early and sleep like a normal human being.
Yeah.
I sleep normal hours and then get ready to do it all over again.
Yep. Yep. So, obviously there's we'll see how things progress, but in the future, perhaps in the near future, we'll do it on video, or we'll, we can even go live. There may be times when we want to do a live feed, which would be fun. So
I think like subjects, just like wrestling in general, context is everything. Subjects is everything.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette, who is a name people will hear ad nauseum, said it has a quote: "If a main event makes sense as a main event, it's the main event." If a subject makes sense for us to do a Facebook Live and we have the people to discuss it, we'll do a Facebook Live. The great thing about a podcast like this is it's not definitive. That you can definitely do work and change things up and have it work out.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about things we could do, such as post premium live event recaps. We could do those on Facebook Live, jump on for about an hour afterwards and discuss and have people come in and talk about it. There's so many options. And as the world of professional wrestling just grows, and it is growing, as much as some people may hate to hear that, it's getting larger. And I mean, pro wrestling is on Netflix.
Yeah.
No one would have ever thought that.
Yeah.
Like even 2 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. There are.
I was just going to say, though. Oh, no, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There are streaming services that have pro wrestling that you're like, that you never would have dreamed of it. BR Live carries AEW. That's something to have a quote unquote legitimate sports outlet carry professional wrestling. That harkens back to the late 80s, early 90s when ESPN had AWA wrestling every afternoon on weekdays.
Yeah.
So, pro wrestling has always been a fabric of television. People can deny it, they can hate it. Pro wrestling, you could argue, created the cable boom.
Well, even in down periods, because the business is cyclical, like anything, and even in the down periods for the business, it's still the biggest thing on cable, and of course now with the streaming services, something I wanted to comment on, because you were talking about how huge it has gotten, and I have noticed in conversations with people, and I'm guessing you've run into this too. People who are not fans, or people who may be interested in it but are very, very casual fans or lapsed fans, will react with some skepticism, and they'll say, really, is it really that big right now? And they don't seem to realize, some people don't realize how big it is right now. But I have a theory about this. I think that because if you think about previous boom times, like if you think about the 80s, which is, I'm old enough that, it was Saturday Night's Main Event. It was the very
Yep.
first episode of Saturday Night's Main Event where I became a fan growing up. Whether it's the boom in the 80s with Hulkamania and all of that, or the 90s with the Monday Night War and the Attitude Era and all of that, the current boom, the thing that's different about the current boom is not the boom itself, but the environment that it's in. I think because if you think about the other booms, you would see wrestlers maybe on the cover of TV Guide, for example. And it would seem like there would be these periods where it would seem like wrestling was everywhere and you couldn't get away from it, like during, like you'd see Austin 316 and NWO shirts everywhere, right? It would be so
Yep.
it would just be, it would be everywhere. And I think now though, it's bigger than it's ever been, I think, by the numbers, but pop culture itself is also bigger than it's ever been in the sense that it is so vast because of streaming services and the internet in general. So it's like wrestling is bigger than it's ever been, I would say, but also pop culture is so vast that it's like no matter how big that fish gets, the fish in this metaphor being wrestling, the pond is now an ocean because there's so much content and so much out there to consume because of the internet, which we did not have. Well, we did have the beginnings of it during the Attitude Era, right? But it was still kind of in its infancy in some ways.
Yes.
Certainly didn't have it during the first boom. So now it's like, wrestling's bigger than ever, but so is pop culture. It's so expansive that there's so much space to fill that no matter how big wrestling gets at this point, it'll never be at the center of things as it did seem to be at a couple of points in the past. If that makes sense. I don't know if I articulated that the way I
It's
meant
more
to, but
accessible now. Whereas in the past, you had to have cable if you
right.
wanted to watch pro wrestling. Yes,
Yeah.
they had the syndicated programs, but
Yep.
if you really wanted to know what was going on, you had to have a cable package that had TNT, USA, just so you could watch. And now with the streaming services, it's there, and it's just so much easier now. It's even in terms of when you access it, you don't have to watch it live. Like
Right.
WWE before WrestleMania did this tour of Europe. It was on Netflix at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And, but, their viewership was actually larger than the American shows. When you count into live streams and non-live streams.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. I think also the most important thing here, you said you saw it everywhere. I mean, pro wrestling licensure during the Attitude Era was just insane. Now it's there's more of a premium put on it.
Yeah.
With the t-shirts being done by Fanatics and the Fanatics handling the collectibles and Netflix handling the streaming. I think that makes the product better because now you have individuals that are able to just focus on making the product better.
Yeah.
Not people sitting there like, how do we make it better? But how do we make money off this guy with merchandise?
Right.
Oh, we have a department that does that. Oh, Fanatics handles the printing of the shirts and shipment of the shirts and autographs and all of that. We just have to take our money and count it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, do we lose a little bit? Yeah, you do with that deal. But it also adds legitimacy to pro wrestling when you're in the same market space as the NBA, the the NHL, MLB, NCAA. You go on to Fanatics right now and you look at like heavily searched people, you see LeBron James and CM Punk.
Yeah.
Like that was totally unheard of. In 2005. That never would
Yeah.
have happened. So,
Yeah.
um I mean, I went a little bit into the woods there in regards to business and licensure, but I think it's important because that just shows the level of acceptance pro
Hmm.
wrestling has in our society. I used to always hear, that's fake. I don't hear that anymore. I just hear, oh, I don't watch that. So
Yeah.
even the dissension and the negativity, the level of it has toned down.
I still hear it once in a while. Someone who really doesn't like it will say to me, "Oh, you're a fan of that? You know it's fake, right?" And it blows my mind that in the year 2025, people still say that. It's like, yeah, no shit. Just like any other
Yep.
form of scripted entertainment. And of course, I
I
would hear when I was a kid, people would say, "Oh, you didn't know that's fake. Oh, you're stupid. You didn't know it's fake." It's like, of course I know it's fake. It's scripted. Yes, I get it. I'll tell you about a conversation I had with somebody once. This was when I was interning at a television station in Concord, New Hampshire. This was when I was in high school, and the Cosby Show was still on the air at the time. There's a terrible, disturbing irony to this, looking in hindsight. But I was talking to a friend of mine at the television station who was also interning there, who was a big fan of the Cosby Show, and he was like picking on me for liking wrestling. He's like, and he actually said to me, he goes, "Oh, wrestling, where it's all fake, it's all scripted. Where's the integrity in that?" And I said to him, "Well, and you'll be able to pick the irony out immediately, but this is how the
I
conversation
think I've
went.
already picked it out when we're
You,
talking
you
about Bill Cosby and
yeah,
the
you already know
integrity.
where this is going, but there was a larger point in what I said to him when I said to him, well, because he was a fan of the Cosby Show, and of course at the time we had no idea about Cosby, what he was really like. But I said to him, I said, "Well, you're a big fan of the Cosby Show. Did you know that the Cosby Show is fake? Did you know that guy's name isn't really Cliff Huxtable? It's actually Bill Cosby. And did you know those aren't actually his children and that's not really his wife? They're actors. It's all fake. Did you know that?" And because it's like, yeah, of course it's fake. It's scripted entertainment. I know that. The obvious irony being, because he's saying to me, "Where's the integrity?" And then I'm saying it mockingly back to him, "Well, where's the integrity with the Cosby Show?" Of course, at the time, having no idea what we would
Right.
eventually learn years and years later. But yeah, it's like, it's so weird. Like, when people pick on it like that, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of things are fake. Game of Thrones is fake. Those aren't real dragons. It's so
Right.
weird when people come at you with that.
I
It's like, well, yeah,
I take a different approach.
yeah,
I tell them, you know what? It's scripted. Fine and dandy.
hmm
I'm like, let me slam you on a piece of plywood with a half-inch piece of foam
yeah,
protecting you.
yeah,
Let me do that to you for like 20 consecutive minutes.
yeah, and then
And then
tell me how.
you tell
Right,
me if it feels fake.
right,
I
yeah.
I
Well,
or
there is that too. Yeah, toughest athletes in the world, I think.
and you do that for 330
Yeah,
days.
no off season.
No off season. And you tell me how you feel. Or like those aren't really steel chairs.
Yeah.
Yes, they are really steel chairs.
Oh yeah.
They're not gimmicked. You
No.
can't gimmick a steel chair. Or
Right.
when the tables are broken, oh, they're pre-cut. Of course they're pre-cut, you moron. Have you ever seen those tables? You want to get thrown through one that isn't pre-cut?
Yeah.
Not fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's the I'm 40. I just turned 42. And of all my interests, pro wrestling is the one that is the most dismissed.
Hmm.
And yeah, or they don't really bleed. Look at Dusty Rhodes' forehead and tell me he didn't really bleed.
Yeah. Oh, look at Triple H's forehead.
Look at Abdullah the
You know?
Butcher's skull.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like he has actual craters in his head.
Yeah. And I'm not, I'm not bothered by, and I'm sure you're not either. I mean, it's weird when people pick on it for the reasons we've outlined, but but it doesn't bother me. It's just like, whatever. I mean, I'm also, as you know, I'm a Kiss fan. Kiss is my favorite band, and I run into, I've run into the same thing. Oh, the band that wears the makeup. Ooh. People, because people who don't like Kiss really don't like Kiss. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever.
I get that being a Metallica fan,
Yeah.
but it's like I hear it all the time when I say one of my favorite bands is Metallica. Oh, you mean Saint Anger? And it's like, yeah, I like Saint Anger.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, yeah, it was a good album. Point being, oh, let's put snare drums on it. Okay.
I do hate the sound of the drums on that, but I like but I would never.
What's worse? Downplaying the bass on "And Justice for All"
Oh yeah.
or the snare drums.
Oh yeah. Turning down the bass on "Injustice for All" is it's one of the most baffling things ever. But
they were a-holes.
yeah, this is so bizarre. I mean, obviously it all worked out for them, but I mean, in a huge way, it all worked out. But yeah, so but I always too, and I think you'll appreciate this because I know that me invoking this quote because I know that you're. Bret Hart is your favorite wrestler, and actually, he's one of my favorites. He's my number 2, right behind Randy Savage. But he's always said everyone's a closet wrestling fan. They just don't know it yet.
Right?
Because there's so many people. I'm sure we've both known so many people who, they're not into it at all, and then they get exposed to it, and they're like, "Oh, actually, I like this. This is pretty good stuff."
Here's what I will say. One of the guys that I can sit and listen to him talk about pro wrestling ad nauseum, just because he is one of the most brilliant minds in professional wrestling ever. Jim Cornette.
Oh yeah.
Said this, and he said it on Dark Side of the Ring, and I'm like, you know what? That is the most simplistic, albeit brilliant look at pro wrestling I've ever heard in my life. He goes, small guy and big guy get into an argument on the street. They pull over on the side of the road and say they're gonna fight. You're gonna pull over and watch. That's pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And it is. It is. It's just completely. That's the beauty of it. It's so simple, but yet storytelling that goes into it.
And yet, I think so. I don't know what to you. I'm curious to know because I think I've heard you say it before, but I'm curious to know what to you is kind of the golden age of wrestling, or at least in terms of when you've enjoyed it the most. But for me personally, and this ties into what you were just saying about what Cornette said. To me, it's right now. To me personally, I think it's better than it's ever been because, and I've said this to Jenny, and I may have said this to you on the phone, I'm not sure, but I cannot recall a time when we have seen, and really I'm talking about WWE specifically, when we have seen the level of character development and really exploring the complexity of the relationships between these various characters. I don't remember that part of it ever being that good, where you're able to tell these complex stories with these very complicated relationships between these various characters, and really develop their, like, just as an example, like Drew McIntyre. There was a time when I was bored to death with Drew McIntyre. He'd come walking out with his sword and everything, couldn't care less. Now, anytime, and his matches still aren't necessarily anything I'm going to go out of my way for. But when that guy talks into a microphone, I want to hear what he has to say. Just as one example, I don't remember there ever being a time where it was this good in that way specifically. And I will argue, this is how I feel, and it's all subjective, everyone's different, but because wrestling is a form of art and art is subjective, but I feel this is the golden age right now. I don't remember it ever being this good in terms of what I like to get out of pro wrestling. And by the way, if I want that great storytelling, WWE provides that. If I want to see a killer match that's going to have me on the edge of my seat, AEW, I can pull up a Will Ospreay match. I will watch any Will Ospreay match anytime and love it. So there's so much available, and I don't think from my perspective it's ever been better than it's been right now. That's how I feel. But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts.
Sorry to cut you off there. I think it's quite good right now. You said it earlier that there's peaks and valleys. Not in those words, but with anything there is. For me, my golden era's gotta be the late 80s to the end of the Attitude Era. And that's such a wide gamut. But you look at the feuds that we had in the late 80s. You look at the feuds that we had. You had Steamboat Flair. You had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. You had trying to think of some other ones. Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. You had Sting and Ric Flair. Lex Luger. You had like so many over-the-top personalities. Then, like, at the flip, like, one pay-per-view, you could be booing Ric Flair, hating his guts, but then 3 months later, you're rooting for him to win because he's going up against this mammoth villain in Vader.
Yeah.
And it's just it's that ability they had to change your viewpoint just with something so simplistic as we're going to put guy B up against guy A now, and we're going to force you to choose who you root for. And it just is magic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I also think there was a time, the sports entertainment era, where we just, it's called the ruthless aggression era, where we just had, we had some great talent. You had Angle and Lesnar, and you had great matches, don't get me wrong. It wasn't complete crap, but you were like a gold miner. You were like a gold miner trying to siphon out the gold in like pounds of mud.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why, for me, there were a number of years where I didn't watch Raw or SmackDown. I would keep an eye on what was going on online, And if
Hmm.
I saw something that looked interesting, I would go on YouTube and I would find the segment and watch it. But there were several years where I did not sit through a single episode of Raw or SmackDown from beginning to end. I just couldn't. I was bored. I was bored. I
I
never
mean,
disconnected from it, but completely. But
there is such a thing as, I say this all the time and people disagree with me. Pro wrestling fans are some of the smartest fans of any fandom in the world because they know what they want. They know the behind the scenes stuff, whether you think that's right or wrong, they do,
yeah.
and they make it known. And pro wrestling is the only professional sport outside of combat sports where you have a situation where the fans can change things like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just like that. And the fans dictate it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
true.
so it really is one of the most fan friendly sports. I mean, maybe not financially with ticket prices being what they are,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like from the aspect of the fans' voices are heard.
Hmm.
Like if you turn off Netflix when uh Austin Theory is on, that's your voice being heard.
Yeah. That's true because there's really no, now that you put it that way, you're right, because there's really no other form of, I mean, there's no, you won't hear me say the word sport, but although I'm not a sports fan. So
It would
the
be sorry to cut you off. I
oh,
think
that's okay.
the what I'm getting at is NFL fans right now hate the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
Whether it be because of Taylor Swift or the Kelsey brothers being everywhere, you
Yeah.
could say the Kansas City Chiefs are one of the most hated pro sports teams because they win.
Yeah.
Now, you can boo them all you want, but the NFL isn't going to come in
Right. It's not
and
going to make a difference.
say,
Yeah.
well, the Kansas City Chiefs can't win the Super Bowl this year. No way in hell.
Yeah.
They're
Right. Right.
not going to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Just like the Boston Celtics are the defending NBA champs.
Yeah.
You can boo them all you want, but if they win the games they're supposed to win, they're going to win the NBA championship. Nothing the fans can do about it.
Well, I was thinking too.
Um,
So, I mean, if you take the sport aspect out of it, and you can use, I mean, it also works if you say entertainment. I can't think of another form of entertainment where the fans have such a direct influence on what goes on. What else is? I mean, I guess. Well, I guess music. If Motley Crue is, well, see, no, that's a poor example. I was going to say if Motley Crue is on tour and the audience doesn't like something they're hearing, they can make their voices heard. But Vince Neil is still the lead singer of Motley Crue, so I guess that's the poor example.
that
But
is the world we live in,
that
yes.
it is, yes. But I suppose music might be the closest thing to where fans. I mean, fans do have a say in a sense in how they react. They can influence music, but I can't think of another example. Whether you want to talk about sports or whether you want to talk about entertainment in a broad sense, I can't think of another example, to your point,
Even
where fans have as much of an influence as they do.
even UFC. Prime example of this is Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse. For the longest time, he was the flyweight champion. Completely, I love Demetrius Johnson. Great fighter, unmarketable guy.
Yeah,
But Dana White isn't going to sit there and say, oh, hey, guess what? We're going to take the belt off you because you're not getting pay-per-view buys.
right.
It's up to his opponent to do that. So again, we're back at that level of fan influence really controlling everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what's great about pro wrestling is that, and you can sit there and just talk with anyone about pro wrestling and get a reaction out of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's awesome.
But it's especially true now, though, what you were saying about fan influence. I feel, because again, like my perspective being the golden ages now in terms of what we're seeing, because I feel with Triple H, Paul Levesque, as head of creative of WWE, he's much more in tune. Vince was so out of touch and just getting worse over time. And I think that's part of why I got so bored with it during the ruthless aggression era, because, Vince was very much stuck in, I mean, his creative peak was probably either Hulkamania or the early Attitude Era. But I mean, he did win the Monday Night War after all. But
Uh,
I feel like
uh,
Triple H is much more in tune with what fans want, because what I think Vince just didn't understand or forgot is that we want long-term, logical, episodic storytelling. And again, I don't think they've ever done it better than they're doing it right now, in my opinion. That's what we want. That works. And Vince had just lost any capacity to I shouldn't say any capacity. That's an exaggeration. But he had lost a lot of capacity to deliver that.
here's what's one. I hate Vince McMahon.
We should mention we did a whole segment, you, Jenny, and I. People can check it out on YouTube. When the Vince McMahon scandal first broke,
I
yeah.
I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Mm,
One of my favorite moments in the ruthless aggression era, well, maybe tail end of Attitude Era, was when Paul Heyman cut a what is called a shoot promo on him about everything Vince had done to wrestling.
yeah.
And I saw that um and I got a little misty-eyed because it's everything I felt.
Mm,
Um growing up, Bret Hart was one of my heroes.
mm,
And I remember that night in November 1997 when Vince screwed my hero, Bret the Hitman Hart. And I remember I was over at my buddy's, Rob Deason's, watching it in his basement. I had my Hitman shirt on
mm.
and just seeing it. And I remember walking home, like, just tears coming down my face
Wow.
because, like, one, that's a hero that has fallen.
Mm-hmm.
And two, your hero has fallen to his arch nemesis,
Mm-hmm.
Shawn Michaels. And three, this guy gave you everything for over 15 years. Gave you everything he had, and you had to do that to him. And learning what we've learned about Montreal since then, even recently,
Mm-hmm.
the Mr. McMahon documentary, where someone said, well, Vince saying, I was afraid Bret would go to WCW and drop the belt in the trash can like Alundra Blaze, was complete and utter bullshit. Because Bret couldn't. He was under contract till December, mid December.
Right.
He couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And if people want to go out and do the research, I challenge you to do this. Do the research. Listen to not everyone's story, but the prime players in that whole story. Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon, Bret Hart, and Triple H. If you want for extra, you can listen to Bruce Pritchard, Jim
Jim
Cornette,
Cornette. Yeah.
um,
Vince Russo, bro.
No, never listen to Vince Russo. Never, ever. But
Sorry, I had to get one in. Sorry to do that to you.
anything involving pro wrestling that comes out of Vince Russo, believe the opposite.
Okay.
That's my advice to our faithful listeners.
Yeah.
You will never, there will never be a subject on Vince Russo on this show. If
Okay.
there is, I won't be on it that week. You'll have to find a fill in.
Okay.
I might give a prepared statement on my thoughts on Vince Russo. The
Okay.
guy talked crap to me on Twitter and then blocked me
Yeah.
and didn't give me a chance to respond. Like, really? I call you out for being a liar with video evidence of you being a liar.
Yeah.
You respond with Mark say what and immediately block me.
Yeah.
You are a bigger, you know what? We're not on radio, so I can say it. You're a bigger pussy than I ever thought. Seriously. And I hope someone tags him in this.
Oh.
Vince Russo, you are a pussy. And you're a liar. But
Yeah.
moving on, the one person's story that has never changed in anything regarding that faithful night in Montreal is Bret the Hitman Hart. His story has stayed the same on
Yeah.
every interview, in his book, everything. And it's even documented on celluloid on the documentary Wrestling with Shadows.
Yeah. We'll have to do an episode. I mean, it's been done to death, but we should still do one on Montreal.
I mean, there are just so many different perspectives, and it is Shakespearean, and just the dominoes that fell after that.
Yes. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
It changed that night, I will say, in my estimation, even over Vince buying WCW, is the most influential night
Oh yeah.
in history-making night in the history of the business.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Because of everything that went with that. And there's something you said that I took exception to. And it was a little thing.
Yeah.
You said Vince beat WCW.
Yeah.
No, Vince didn't beat WCW. AOL Time Warner.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, I'm speaking loosely when I say that, but yeah.
Vince did.
But that's another complicated.
Vince did
subject
enough with the stars he had.
Yeah.
But AOL Time Warner really just deep sixed WCW.
Oh yeah. In the end, yeah.
I mean,
but Vince did figure out how to right the ship, though.
He did,
and get competitive.
Vince gets a lot more credit than what he deserves in that.
Well, we should do an episode about that too. Yeah.
Vince, we sit here and Vince gets this whole thing about he started the Attitude Era. That one guy, the King of Bros, helped with Crash TV.
Yeah.
Bruce Pritchard, Jim Cornette, Jim Ross, Gerald Briscoe, Pat Patterson. And, these two guys never get credit for the Attitude. These three never get credit for the Attitude Era, and they should.
Paul Heyman, I think, should get a lot of credit, too.
Well, Paul Heyman for what he did with ECW.
Exactly, yeah.
Paul Heyman, Triple H, Paul Levesque, Shawn Michaels, and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Because three of those guys had the balls to say, you know what, Vince? You can fine us, you can suspend us, but we're going to go on there and say these things that you never thought you would hear on professional wrestling. We're going to do these things you never thought you would see, and they're going to threaten us, but you know what? Our ratings are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
And that was then when WCW didn't have that response to it, because at that point, time Turner was telling Eric Bischoff, we're not going down that road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Eric Bischoff's like, we just had our biggest pay-per-view ever.
Right.
Starrcade 97, which we will definitely have to have a program on that, because
Yes.
that was, oh man, you talk about the ship sinking.
Yeah.
That was the start, and it was bad.
Yeah.
But and now you're handcuffing us. You're slashing my budget on top of giving me a second 2-hour show with talent that's burnt out doing one, and they had limited dates to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying this is stuff I cannot do to compete the company that's gaining traction on us that's doing it.
Yeah.
So no, I get you were speaking loosely, but I will say this. If there's anyone out there that believes that Vince McMahon is the single reason
Oh, no, of course not.
WCW went out of business,
Yeah.
there is a book you can read called Nitro by Guy Pearce. I heavily suggest you go out and read it, and it is a bit of a tome.
Mm-hmm.
It's over 1,000 pages, but it is a very quick read. Read it, and you will get a greater understanding of just the sabotage
Mm-hmm.
that Turner and AOL Time Warner put in to killing WCW. Vince did the right things at the right time, certainly.
Yes. He took
with his
advantage
committee,
of
but
the opportunities. Yeah.
without AOL Time Warner doing what they did,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. We should, shall we get into, and we should tell the listeners too. I think so. You want to have ideally 3 main kind of news stories each episode.
I think when you do something like this, it's important to have news.
Yeah.
Like things that have actually happened.
Yeah.
Where we can talk about it and kind of ease into our subject. This is kind of an introductory episode. So, but I think it's important that if there's news out there, we certainly discuss it.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say the nice thing about doing a subject like pro wrestling is there's always going to be something to talk about, and that is an example of where it is like sports, because even though again it's scripted entertainment, but just like with sports, at least when the sport is in season, there's always something to talk about, and
even during the off season. I mean, NFL draft happened this week, and that was a big deal. There were national news outlets covering it.
Oh yeah, so there's always stuff with wrestling.
I saw something that really made me laugh about that. The NFL draft was more highly searched on Google than the death of the Pope.
Oh, no kidding. That actually doesn't surprise me, though.
It doesn't surprise me, but it's just funny to see. NFL draft, Pope dead.
Yeah.
Like,
that's doesn't surprise
funny.
me.
It shouldn't surprise anyone, but it's still funny.
Yeah. So of course, one of the things was WrestleMania just happened, and we were gonna give our thoughts on that. This one was not without some. This WrestleMania was not without some controversy, and that very mixed reactions to the main event. Should we start? I'm really you and I haven't talked about this yet, so I'm especially curious because I have no idea what your thoughts are on the main event, but I have some thoughts on the main event that are not in line with the general reaction that I've seen online. I actually, well, I don't know. Should I go first or do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
There have been over 40 WrestleMania main events, and that was one of them. I can use so many cliches. They all can't be bangers, but
Yeah.
they all can't be Dave Meltzer 5-star expresses.
Right. Right.
But this, uh, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like
We're gonna disagree about this, and I love it because this will make for a really interesting discussion. Because I have a
it
very
was just, oh my goodness. Look,
that
and
is the general consensus. I do have to acknowledge.
people that know me are gonna say, Eric, you're just a Cody fanboy. You're a John Cena hater. I don't hate John Cena. He's boring. He's always been boring to me. You've
Really,
seen
okay.
one John Cena match, you've seen every John Cena match.
That I kind of would agree with. Yeah.
They're very for formulaic, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
They follow a thing, and if you have a really great wrestler, they can maybe squeeze out a kernel of corn out of that turd. But at the end of the day, is what it is. His heel turn recently, becoming a bad guy, brilliant, awesome. But look, it's just time to say it. He's lost not just one step, but many steps. And that match was just, it was as if you were doing, it was as if a spastic kid was working on paint by numbers. You give them the instructions,
Uh-huh.
you get the end result, but
Uh-huh.
you look at the painting and you're like, what the hell did you do?
Okay.
I mean, it was move, stall, move, stall, move, stall, move, stall. And it was just like, this is the main event. This is how we're going to begin a historic 17th world title reign with
Yeah.
this drizzling pile of turds.
Uh-huh.
No, like I love night one. I
Yeah.
told Charles Richardson, a friend of both you and I,
Yes, yes.
in a chat him and I had, I think I told him I gave it a 6.5 or a 7. Night one, night two, I think I gave a 3, with the only saving grace being Dominic Mysterio becoming the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
Oh, that was great.
Um,
We'll have to talk about that too. Um, so just so we're clear though, before I give my thoughts. So you didn't like the main event? I just want to
I
make sure
did
I'm
not
clear.
like I did not like the night 2 main
The night
event.
2 main event.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
I did not.
Okay.
I knew I have no issue with the end result because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew going into it what the end result was going to be. John
yeah.
Cena was going to win world title 17.
Right.
Fine. Cool. I get it. Last year,
Yeah,
do it, whatever. Let's get past it. But how you got there and Travis Scott getting involved, and it just
yeah.
was.
It wasn't. Well,
Cody Rhodes deserved better if he was going to drop the title.
that's fair. That's fair. All right. So my thoughts. I'm going to be the contrarian here.
Ooh,
I
lovely.
I actually liked the match. I
Well,
liked it. I liked it a lot, and I'll tell you why. And I was having trouble because it's funny too. Because even as I'm watching it, I remember thinking Jenny and I watched it live, and I thought a lot of people aren't going to like this match.
I fell asleep during it.
Did you really? For real?
I had to go back and rewatch.
Oh wow!
It.
So
Yeah, I fell asleep.
I was enjoying the match. It was about what I expected in terms of pacing. I thought Cena looked okay in there. You know, a little slower than he used to be, but his work rate was never great. But I was having trouble in the moment watching the match. I wasn't even sure exactly what it was about it I was so into, but I just was enjoying it. Then I was listening to so Stevie Richards, you know, his podcast, which I listen to often. He also liked the match, and he said something that kind of helped sort of solidify in my mind how best to articulate. So I'm going to kind of say what he said, but then I realized as I heard him saying this, I connected with what he was saying, and I was like, that's why I liked the match. He said, yeah, basically the match was slow and whatnot, but it was the point of the pacing of the match, not just that John Cena, I mean, you know, he's 47 years old, and you know, he's not 27 or 37. So there's
And
that.
I want to say real quick, sorry, Matt.
Yeah, it's okay.
There's a difference between good shape and ring shape.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't think John Cena has been in ring shape since he's come back.
Right.
He's got the Hollywood look, and that's awesome,
Yeah.
but you're putting him in with all of these machines.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it definitely is not doing him justice.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely tell.
Oh yeah, yeah. But so the match was slow, but what Stevie Richards pointed out was during the match, you're seeing for the first time this iteration. I say this iteration because he was a heel, you know, 20 years ago, and then they turned him. You're seeing John Cena. This is how you're experiencing how John Cena is as a heel in 2025, and the way he behaves in the ring and what he's doing, his body language, his facial expressions, all of that. You're experiencing John Cena. So he's showing us who he is in the ring as a heel in 2025. And I really enjoyed that, watching him work as a heel against, you know, this white meat babyface, as we say, in the main event of WrestleMania. I really enjoyed that. And I was very interested in watching. Okay, so now we know, you know, we've seen the promos, we know the vibe of heel John Cena. What is heel John Cena like against Cody Rhodes actually in the ring? And that's what we're experiencing watching this. And I actually really enjoyed it. Doesn't mean I don't have criticisms. The Travis Scott thing was goofy, and The Rock not showing up at all was disappointing. And that's a whole other thing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I actually liked the match. I really liked the match. And I thought for what it was, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, like I said, not perfect, but I thought it was good.
Teach their own.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
I mean, I'm definitely in the minority, clearly.
you really are.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I mean, I'm not gonna say it was Giant Gonzalez versus Undertaker.
There's nothing as bad as that. Oh my God.
Or Big Boss Man Undertaker Hell in a Cell.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a shame that two of the worst WrestleMania matches ever, one of the greatest in-ring performers and characters of all time, was involved in.
Yeah.
I mean, it just proves in pro wrestling you need two to dance.
Yeah.
And sometimes it looks good on paper, then you go into the match and the bell has to ring.
Yeah.
you gotta put boots to mat, and it just does not work. I mean, I don't even think it was Macho Man Crush from WrestleMania 10.
Yeah.
Those are some of the worst WrestleMania matches, worst worked.
One other positive thing about it, at least from my perspective, because I liked the match. One other thing I will say, I did kind of like, even though it was disappointing that The Rock never came out and and the Travis Scott thing was a little weird. I did kind of like, though, that it wasn't super overbooked like last year's when Cody won the title from Roman
See,
Reigns. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, when I say overbooked, I'm not saying I minded it last year. I didn't mind it because I thought it was all really cool, everything they did. But I thought at the same time, it was a little bit of a relief that we didn't get like, 5 or 6 different people getting involved in the match this time in the main event. I don't want that to be a thing where every main event for the undisputed title at every WrestleMania every year, we got this whole parade of people all getting involved and multiple ref bumps. And well, we did have multiple ref bumps, didn't we? But you know what I mean? I kind of liked that it was sort of underbooked compared to last year. I don't know. I kind of appreciated that.
we have a special correspondent that has decided to
Yes.
join us.
Very cute. People can't see it because it's just audio, but yes, your dog is adorable. Absolutely adorable.
All right, you gotta go. We'll play later. But sorry, Rocky. You know, kind of lost my train of thought there. I loved how they worked the main event last year because it added so much to the Roman Reigns mystique.
Oh yeah, no, it was fun.
He needed he needed Taker, Jey Uso, and he needed Roman to want to extract revenge on Seth Rollins to win.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind it. Look,
but you know what I mean, though. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be that every year. You know what I mean?
And as bad as I thought the match was, John Cena's heel promos have been amazing.
I'm loving. Oh, I love it. I love just the faces that he makes now. It's awesome.
Like, people will sit here and say, "Oh, he's playing such a good character." My volley to that is, are we sure he's playing?
Right.
I honestly believe this is 25 years of feelings he has had pent up inside of him.
Maybe.
And just
Finally.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, people can sit here all they want and say, "Oh, he's playing a character." I think that these are his true feelings, just amplified.
Yeah.
And, like we talked about it, his first heel promo, where he just came out and he's like, "You will get nothing." And you're like, oh my.
Yeah. And I like the minimalism of his WrestleMania entrance.
Yup.
Where it was dark and it's just like for the graphic is his name in white on a black background. I thought that was so cool. So well done.
That was definitely like, wow.
Yeah.
He's really getting into this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to show people, I'm not just a Major League John Cena hater.
Right.
I'm not just sitting here and being like, I hate John Cena. I'm not a fan of him as a wrestler. I think he's a great guy. I've never met him personally, but his work for Make-A-Wish and
he holds the record, right?
Yeah, being nearly scandal proof,
Yeah.
There were some backstage things that you may never know if they actually happened or not. But nonetheless,
nothing major. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing major. I think his biggest scandal was Total Divas.
Yeah, because he came off
Total Bellas.
Came off like a little bit of a psycho on those shows, like
John Cena's House Rules.
Yeah.
Like, Good work. But yeah, I thought night one was great.
Yeah,
Um,
that we
I
probably agree on because I bet you liked the main event on night one, right?
I again, and we'll get into this next episode,
Sure.
which teaser people, we'll talk about that at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
I did get misty eyed during one person's entrance.
CM Punk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just following him since 2003 and knowing that was his dream and seeing him come out and for the second time in the band Living Color playing him to the ring.
Y-
First time we ever saw it because
Yeah.
at the WrestleMania with The Undertaker, we didn't see it live,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
that and the video package that they played before he came out,
yeah,
very, very. Even Jim Cornette was like, that was really cool, and he doesn't have a lot of nice things to say typically, but he even Cornette was really impressed with that whole
Cornette
thing.
is, look, here's the deal with Cornette. Cornette is very old school.
Oh yeah,
And I think I'm going to be accused of that when we get into one of our new subjects.
sure,
And I don't mind it. I like Jim Cornette because I know anything he's saying about professional wrestling. God bless it, he believes it.
oh yeah, yeah,
And he feels that in his heart, he is 100% right. And
yeah.
just his passion for the business.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's infectious. I probably disagree with half of what he says, but I still am fascinated to hear him say it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
You want to hear what crazy Uncle Jim is going to say this week.
Oh yeah.
And yes, does he hate AEW? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does he have very valid points as to why he dislikes AEW? To a degree. I mean, he really hates Kenny Omega.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And does he have a valid reason for disliking Kenny? Yes, he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jim Cornette can hold a grudge.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
you want to sit here and people want to say, well, uh he hates Kenny Omega and has said some really bad things about him. Kenny Omega screwed up a major show for Ring of Honor because he lied
Yeah.
to Jim Cornette.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when someone takes this business as seriously as Jim Cornette does,
Yeah. But
that's going to happen.
yeah, but
Um.
Cornette was very, very positive about the. I don't know if you listened to what he
Oh, of
said, but
course.
he was very positive about the night one main event. He really liked that match, and he seems to really respect. I don't think he necessarily likes Seth Rollins as much as, well, he loves CM Punk, and he seems to really like Roman Reigns, and I think he basically likes Seth Rollins as well, and he was very, very positive about the match, and it
He
was
doesn't
really
like,
good.
to quote Jim Cornette, he doesn't like the goofy goddamn outfits.
Yeah, yeah.
And look, I get that, but as someone that has personally interacted with the man known as Seth Rollins, that is
Yeah.
not his real name,
Yeah.
that's a a caricature of what he's like.
Right. Yeah.
And
That's his character. Yeah.
so, I mean, the greatest wrestling characters are an exaggeration of who you are personally.
Yeah.
Like, CM Punk's greatest run is when he would tell people at a rec center filled to the rafters, I'm better than you because I don't drink.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't do drugs. That is true. CM Punk really is straight edge.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Does he believe that? I don't think so. But it's one of those things that, again, it's him personally amplified. And
Yeah.
that's what makes a great in-ring character. You know, Roman Reigns was dead in the water for the longest time until he said, "Acknowledge me."
Yep.
And boom, it caught. And why? Because that is how he felt. I have done all of this. I
Yeah.
beat leukemia to come back and entertain you, and you guys boo me?
Yeah.
F you. You need to acknowledge me.
Yep. Yep.
And that is when you believe in these characters, when you get an attachment
Mm-hmm.
to them.
Right.
Bret Hart, when he said, "I am the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be," you believed, you had this belief that he felt that that was the truth.
Right.
Shawn Michaels, when he was, "I'm the showstopper, I'm the icon, I'm the main event," you knew good and damn well Shawn Michaels actually believed that.
Right. Um, what did you think of the ending of the match? Were you surprised with the finish with the Heyman turn?
No, I saw
I
it coming. And
really, I was surprised.
even if you see it coming, what's beautiful is when you still are shocked by it
Right. Or
and how they did it. I mean, man, all all three guys were just amazing. And then the Paul Heyman element
yeah.
just was awesome. And then you had Paul Heyman that Monday, go on the Pat McAfee show and
Mm-hmm.
just be a complete heel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we'll touch base on some of the things he said with another news story
Yeah.
because it's relevant to the news story.
Yeah.
Um, but man, just brilliant storytelling.
Yeah.
I felt Seth had to win that match. I felt he was due. Winning that match did nothing for Roman Reigns.
Right.
It would do nothing for CM Punk.
Yeah.
But what it does for Seth, it moves him into that conversation of we need someone to eventually face Jey Uso.
Yeah.
Seth just beat these two great wrestlers. It's just logical to throw him in.
Now you mentioned Jey Uso. There's a lot of people online in the IWC are very critical of, and I am too. Actually, I did not really like that the Jey Uso versus Gunther match very much. I thought it was kind of flat, and I thought the ending was kind of lame. And
My
it's just,
cousin Austin said this, and he said it, and I'm like, that's it. He said it's a rehash of their Raw match.
mm,
Now, adding context to this, I learned this morning reading online that Gunther did, prior to the match, ask for time off.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So, he was written off Raw this week with a suspension.
Yeah,
So, he is getting time off. So, the ending does make a touch more sense.
I mean, I think it makes sense that Jey Uso won. I think it would have been weird to have him lose again. I thought they had to have him win. I just didn't like the way they did it.
Yeah, I don't think you have your monster heel tap out to his own finishing maneuver.
And almost immediately too. It was just very flat, very
I
flat.
would if you're gonna, I don't have an issue with the sleeper being used.
Yeah,
I don't have an issue with Jay winning in that fashion. Just have Gunther pass out.
yeah, yeah. Could have been done
Because,
better.
yeah, Bobby Roode was the producer of that match.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was also a producer of another horribly booked match. I forget which one.
Hmm.
But just, yeah, not his finest night
No.
producing, certainly.
What did you think of the triple threat? I feel like generally they do way too many triple threats these days, but the triple threat for the women's title, Io
Loved
Sky,
it.
yeah, that was really good, wasn't it?
I loved the ending they did.
Yes, and I love that
Um,
Io went over and retained the title.
yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I felt that I thought there was only one direction they could go,
yeah,
and that direction was Rhea Ripley wins again.
hmm
Um, man, I thought it was really good
yeah,
for like just how hodgepodged it was put together.
yeah,
Um, but it was really good. I liked it.
hmm
I think it served its purpose. It made Io Sky a star.
hmm
Good
yeah.
job. And then we had another women's match that, yeah, good golly, Miss Molly.
We may disagree on this if you're talking about the match I think you're talking about. What match are you thinking of?
Charlotte and Tiffany.
I liked it. You didn't like it?
I do not think those two can work together.
I thought it was
I
real. I thought it exceeded. That's what I thought going in. That match exceeded my expectations quite a bit.
My issue, and I'm going to go into the woods a little bit and into the locker room. Charlotte took some liberties,
Mm.
and
Well, Tiffany did
anytime
lose a tooth.
anytime that natural selection from the top rope
mm.
was brutal, and
Mm.
it didn't need to be. It
Yeah.
didn't need to be.
Yeah. Um.
And there were some stiff shots that Charlotte threw. I don't know if I never saw Tiffany give a receipt.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because Tiffany was too timid to give that receipt, or if she just didn't wanted to stay professional.
Mm.
But
I think
man,
didn't Charlotte have to kind of work a little bit stiff though? Don't you think maybe they told her
not
that just
to
because
the
of all the online speculation about all the drama and maybe
not
let's lean into that a little bit. You know what I mean?
not to the degree that she did.
Hmm.
Not to the degree that she did. I again that natural selection was just was a car wreck,
Yeah.
and it didn't need to be.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
I liked the match. I'm glad that Stratton won. I don't think
I
she's
was
very.
really I was really scared that
Yeah.
they were gonna have Charlotte win. And it's like, okay, you built this girl up in her first major feud against a big name talent. You are jobbing her out.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. No, I think they did the
Um,
right thing.
they did.
Yeah.
As much as Charlotte may disagree with it, they certainly did.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You mentioned earlier too. You referred to Rey. I almost said Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, winning the
Daddy
Intercontinental
Dom!
title, and that was great. And we're watching it, and we hear. I had this moment. I know I wasn't the only one. I've heard other people say this too, where the match is going, and you hear the crowd, and it sounds like they're. Wait, are they singing Cody's song? That Cody Rhodes, what are they doing? And then you realize, no, they're singing Dirty, Dirty Dom. And they were into it and they were into him. And
Um
he,
man.
he has he's going to be a massive baby face when they eventually pull the trigger on that. Massive.
I hope they never do. I love him as a heel. You watch
Yeah.
the WrestleMania post show in his interview where he is just like, I'm a 20-year veteran
Yeah.
and I'm the greatest intercontinental champion ever. And then, you have a guy who is pretty much retired, Big E, he just nonchalantly says, "Oh, you've won one of these, right?" And he's like, "I've won a couple of them," and he goes, "Yeah, I'm already better than you."
Yeah.
And you're like, "What
Oh,
in the?"
he's fantastic. But you know, it's like I've heard Bruce Pritchard say that Vince McMahon had an axiom: the more they hate you, the more they're dying to love you. And I think Dominic is going to be a perfect example of that, because that crowd exploded when he won. They were very much into him winning. And and obviously with the booing, you know, because for anyone who's new to pro wrestling, if you don't know, it's not that you're supposed to hate the heel. You're supposed to love to hate the heel. And the crowd
Yeah.
loves to boo Dominic, but we all know, we all really love him. You know, so
I,
eventually
you know,
they will pull the trigger on a face turn,
I,
and he will be a massive baby face when they do it.
I have a knack for rooting for the bad guys.
Yeah.
Um, in cinema, I have a belief that all Darth Vader wanted was a centralized government. How can you dislike him?
Yeah.
Oh, Cobra Kai were the real heroes of the Karate Kid. Daniel LaRusso was the bully.
Yeah. Well, at least
Um,
it seems like it in the beginning of the series anyway. Yeah, certainly.
no, in the movie The
Oh, you mean
Karate
in the
Kid,
movies? Oh, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There,
What did the Cobra Kai ever really do? Daniel LaRusso at the beach is the one who throws the first blow.
yeah. It's true.
Johnny just defended himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, trying to save Allie from this stalkerish horn dog from New York.
Well, even in wrestling, when I first became a fan in the '80s during Hulkamania, they people don't realize this or never bothered to notice, I don't think, but they kind of use that formula with Hogan, where, you know, Hogan would be Hogan, of course, was always a babyface during that period, but when his fellow babyface would turn on him, most of the time, the newly minted heel did kind of have a point. Like, you could sympathize with the
Yes.
villain, and you could see where, well, the villain, yeah, he kind of does have a good reason to be angry with Hogan.
The perfect example of that is Macho Man.
Yeah.
Like,
Macho Man, Sid Justice.
oh
Um,
yeah.
you know,
Except the problem with Sid is it just can't. Oh, Sid,
well,
rest in peace, buddy.
there were a lot of
Love ya.
problems with Sid, but
Sid, decent worker, but my goodness, just him and a microphone did not get along.
yeah.
And like, if you're gonna work with Hogan, you gotta be able to talk.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well,
I
in Sid's defense, he did only have half the brain that Kevin Nash did.
uh, yeah, my favorite Sid story is he's cutting a promo on WWF's Free for All.
Yeah.
Cutting a promo. It is live, and he's
Yeah.
talking. He stumbles over his words and goes, we need to restart that. And Jim Ross just goes, "We're live, pal."
Yeah. You can find that on YouTube for anyone who hasn't seen it. Yeah. There's a bunch of Sid botch videos. Yeah. But they did use that formula with Hogan, and
Work.
yeah.
There were some misses now that I think about it. When they turned Paul Orndorff,
Yeah.
everyone hated him. And when they turned Andre,
Yeah.
but I have a belief on when they turned Andre. People still would have loved Andre if two things. If the turn didn't happen on Piper's Pit,
Mm-hmm.
and Piper wouldn't have said those like iconic two words before they cut to commercial. "You're bleeding."
Yeah.
And they put Andre with Bobby the Brain Heenan,
Oh yeah.
which,
No, they hedged their bets. They made sure that, you know, it
yo,
was
yeah,
clear where they were going with it.
yeah.
Um, Were there any other matches that stand out in your mind that you wanted to comment on from
Um,
WrestleMania 41? I'm trying to think what else there was.
you know,
There was the
my
women's tag title match, kind
I
of.
was gonna say my heart goes out to Bailey.
Yeah.
Um, I That's the other match I believe Bobby Roode produced.
Oh, okay.
Was
I
that
thought the match itself was fine. I didn't think it was anything
I
special, but I thought it was okay.
look, if you're gonna my belief is if you're gonna remove Bailey from that match, you gotta have the person that is replacing her do something. Becky Lynch took 2 bumps in that match.
Yeah.
And then the next night you have her turn heel. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you just have her turn heel in the damn match?
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they tried to do something big on Raw. Maybe that was one of the things. Oh, we got to save something for Raw. I don't know.
Or
Um,
you just have Liv and Raquel go over, have
yeah.
the rematch on Raw, and have
Oh,
Becky
and then,
turn
yeah,
when they lose again.
I actually probably would have preferred that because I don't like hot shotting titles.
Well,
Um,
hot-shotting titles just diminishes them. And if
yeah.
you're hot-shotting it just to build towards a turn, it really looks bad.
Yeah.
And they took the titles off Liv and Raquel, which those two are money as a tag team.
Right.
So it just all around, I was just like, what are we doing here?
I'm just looking up to make sure we don't miss anything before we. Oh, Jade Cargill versus Naomi. I thought that was pretty good.
Uh, yeah. Oh, it,
I thought it was
in
decent.
the history of WrestleMania, Matt,
Oh yeah,
there have been many women's matches.
nothing.
That was one of
That was
them.
one of them. Nothing special, but I like Naomi as a heel. I like Naomi as a heel
I
quite a bit.
like Naomi as a heel. My issue, and if I'm wrong, Charles can please message me, correct me. Charles said this, and I agreed. Goodness gracious, Jade Cargill needs work. She just is not good in the ring.
I thought she was okay. I didn't
I
think she was
mean,
spectacular, but I think she's
there
improved.
is. I mean, so we went from drizzling poop to a formed turd. Great.
Yeah,
You know what? It's still poop.
just let her do the
Eh,
big power moves. That's all she needs to do. She doesn't need to
But
do anything fancy.
when you're telling a story of a vendetta, you gotta have the baby face get beaten down and then come back.
Fair enough.
And
Yeah, true.
if you're gonna do only big power moves,
Yeah,
it's hard to get that baby face comeback off big power moves. I
yeah,
mean, Hogan could do it, but Jade Cargill isn't Hulk Hogan.
right.
So that's really my issue is I just thought I I don't know if they cut their time, but Jade Cargill's very rough in the ring. And I think she would have actually benefited from some time in NXT.
I agree there. Um,
I think that she just hoofda. It's it's rough. And it's gonna be rough business for any woman that gets in the ring with her.
There was also War Raiders versus New Day. That one was a little bit of a yawn for me. I wasn't really that into that match.
I think
I like heel New Day, but actually, I like
Mhm.
heel New Day a lot. But other than that, it was like,
I think the issue with that is I think sometimes wrestlers when they know they're losing the title and they come out, there's this idea of F it,
mm-hmm,
just kind of phoning it in.
yeah,
And I hate it when it happens, but I get it.
yeah,
Because you work so hard to get those titles, and you work so hard to kind of make your title reign important, and then eventually you're going to lose.
mm-hmm,
But to be told you're losing on the biggest stage of the year, and you just won them. It's kind of it's heartbreaking, especially when they're guys that have had the maligned career that
Hmm.
the War Raiders have had.
Um, there was Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano. I thought that was fun. I liked it a lot. I like the whole
See,
gimmick with El Grande Americano. I think it's fun.
I think it's fun. I think I really want to know not just what is the payoff, but who's going to cash in the payoff.
Hmm.
I think that's very interesting. I loved Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight.
Yep, I thought that was very good. A very good match.
I think if you want a guy that has improved a great deal by being in WWE, it's Jacob Fatu.
Yeah.
And he is the poster child for what can happen if you just listen.
Hmm. Well, I would actually, interestingly enough, I would say the same thing about LA Knight.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he's
LA
improved a
Knight.
lot too. I think he's
Oh, yeah.
really on top of his game. They had a very good match together.
I
Um,
I I thought when they paired them together, I was guilty of being very negative and
yeah,
saying this ain't gonna be good.
yeah,
And this is not. But man, maybe it so far exceeded my low expectations that dilutes my view of it, but it
yeah,
was really good.
yeah, yeah,
It really impressed me.
yeah. I liked it a lot. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. I was kind of like, meh. Feel like we've seen it because we have.
I thought there were some really great spots in it. Damien going through the table was just an awesome visual.
Yeah,
Um, I think it worked as a blow off to their feud and let both of them move into different
that's the
directions.
that's the thing. I hope it was the blow off because time for them both to
I
move on.
Yeah, and I think it is. I mean, I could see a fatal four way coming up for the United States title.
Yeah.
Um, unless I mean, there with Jacob Fatu, there's a couple different routes they can take there.
Oh yeah, that guy's gonna be he's gonna be in a WrestleMania main event before you
If
know it.
if he can keep his head on straight, he has
Yeah.
had legal issues
Oh yeah.
and other missteps, and that's so important. As important as your ring rate, your work rate in the ring, and your mic skills,
Hmm.
it's can you keep it together in your head?
Yeah.
So because companies got to be able to depend on you.
Yeah. Absolutely. The only other one left that we haven't talked about is AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. Um, didn't like it, huh? Didn't like it. I thought it was good. I didn't think it
I
was great, but I thought it was pretty good.
I pains me because there was only one logical way they could go, and that's have Logan Paul win.
Yeah.
Um, I just I want AJ to get a big win at some point here. His career's wrapping up, and I thought maybe like you could have had AJ win that match with like a quick roll up or something. You could have had Logan Paul dominate that match and AJ win out of the blue.
Yeah.
Um, I I just think it's a pretty big rub for Logan Paul at this stage of his career. And it's a rub he didn't necessarily need. If he
Yeah.
loses to AJ Styles, it doesn't diminish him in
True.
any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But
That's true.
it does diminish AJ a little bit.
We probably haven't seen the last of I think that they'll probably have another. They'll probably have a rematch. I think. Um, and that's all the matches from WrestleMania 41.
Yeah,
Sounds like overall on balance, I liked it more than you did.
you know, if we're going in the aggregate,
Yeah.
I think I gave night one a seven. I gave night two three and a half out of 10. So we're going at about 6 out of 10 total for the two nights. I think that's good for 9 hours of wrestling.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, they're not all gonna be fix.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good score. I think the goods far outweighed the bads.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, in my estimation, the bads occurred in some really unfortunate spots and spots where they're really noticeable. And
Yeah.
but again, you're producing 9 hours of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So, I think they did the best they could.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to go 7 out of 10. I'm going to go a little better, but not as exciting as last year had more buzz, but I thought this year was pretty good. Um, should we talk about, so we have two other news items. We've been going a long time, so we probably shouldn't spend too much time on these, but for the inaugural, reboot of, Tough Bumps, which, this is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this. So like I said,
I am too.
I'm glad you, invited me for the relaunch of this. This is cool.
Yes.
Um, one of the other things was, that you had brought up was WWE Unreal, which is a show launching on Netflix this summer. We might disagree on this because you seem not as excited about it as I am. I'm actually really excited about this. We should tell people what it is. So basically, it's a behind the scenes, like for the first time,
You're
like really going behind the scenes into the
you're going
process.
into WWE creative meetings,
Yeah, yeah,
which I'm old school.
yeah.
I don't break fade. Don't For those that don't know, kayfabe is a carnival term in regards to keeping up the act.
Hmm.
Don't don't break fabe. Don't don't do it. I look. I know kayfabe's dead. I'm not unrealistic,
Yeah.
but goodness gracious, this just this just pisses all over kayfabe.
Yeah. So let me play devil's well, I guess I'm not really playing devil's advocate because I do feel this way, but my counter argument would be, I mean, how is it any different than um watching a documentary about the making of a film or a television show that you really like, or something like that? Like why is this
Because
any different?
it ruins the romanticism of it. It ruined, to me, it's setting a precedent that the fans deserve this access.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's true. Look, there needs to be a line that fans don't cross. And
Yeah.
I believe this with any sport. I don't believe that journalists should be allowed in the locker rooms right after a game.
Oh, okay.
I think that that's time to decompress from the game.
Yeah.
There's a press conference after the game for that very reason.
So you're
Like,
looking at it as, and it's interesting because I think in a broader sense, because you and I think from this conversation, I get we think of wrestling a little bit differently in the sense that because you often will use the word sport, and I'm thinking of it more in a context of entertainment, but I also am not a sports fan, and you are.
I
So it
think
makes sense to me why you think of it the way that you do in your thought process.
yeah, I mean, because it's being promoted as a sport now.
Yeah.
Whether people want to believe that or not,
Yeah.
I mean, it is being promoted as a sport. And
Yeah.
you don't have to like it, but that's the way it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's the way I choose to look at it. And my way isn't always the best way. That's something that's taken me 40 plus years to learn. Believe it or not. But yeah, I just I do- I like the idea and the mythicism of the creative room being like the hidden fortress, if you will.
Yeah. Would it be, because I want to understand your thought process. Would it be like, I assume, like, would you have an objection to like a documentary about how I don't know. Like say when again, I'm not a sports fan, so I'll be clumsy with any kind of analogy I try to do. But say if when Belichick was still coaching the Patriots, would you have objected to some sort of a documentary or a docu-series where they actually went inside the strategy sessions of Belichick with the assistant coaches, or Belichick with the team having meetings and
Well,
things? Would
one,
that be?
Belichick never would have allowed that. He
I
never
know,
would
I
have
know,
allowed that full access. But I
but is that
know,
analogous to something that you might
yeah,
object to as a
I
fan?
would
Okay,
object to it in the sense of that, again, that's the inner sanctum.
okay,
Like, that's where game plans are formulated.
yeah,
That's where we're laying the blueprint. And you would be crazy to not think that Tony Khan is going to watch this series and try to figure out how WWE thinks, um, and use it
Eh,
to his advantage.
I don't
Let
think.
me let me let me ask this.
Yeah,
Do you think when WCW was curb stomping WWF every week, Vince McMahon wouldn't have killed to have a camera in WCW's creative meetings?
no, because Vince was too arrogant. I
Oh, I disagree. Vince, on the surface, would have told everyone, I don't care what they're doing, but I guarantee you in his office at home, he would watch that tape ad nauseum.
maybe.
The point is that I think it's exposing too much, and I think it might do a disservice to some of the wrestlers.
Yeah,
Like, I'm a major CM Punk fan. If I'm watching and I hear a creative meeting that, oh, we're gonna strap CM Punk, we're gonna give him the title at WrestleMania, but then I see why the plans changed. I might hate the person that filled in for CM Punk, and
true.
that could ruin their push
Good
if
point.
enough people feel the way I feel.
That's valid. Yeah,
So again, I think I get why people are excited for it, and
yeah.
anytime people are excited about pro wrestling, I'm cool with it.
Oh yeah.
But let's, like, for someone that's nearly a lifelong pro wrestling fan, just there are some places where the camera doesn't need to be.
Let me ask you this though, because this is something when I first learned or saw an ad. I think I'd seen an ad for it on Netflix during WrestleMania. I think the other thing that occurs to me about this is how do we know that this is even? How do we know they're not working us with this series?
Very well could be.
You
And you
know,
know what?
we might
We
not be seeing
deserve
the
it.
real
We
thing.
deserve to be worked.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want that much access, you deserve to be worked. How many schmucks do you think called Mean Gene's hotline paying $1.50 a minute when it was complete bullshit?
yeah,
How many schmucks still subscribe to Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer? I
yeah,
know I'm one of them. Like,
yeah.
I mean, seriously, if you are at that stage and dumb enough to believe everything you're seeing in pro wrestling, you deserve to be taken advantage of.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Should we move on to our last subject? Did you have anything to add on the
No, I
WWE
mean,
Unreal?
I'll watch.
You're still gonna watch it, right?
Yeah,
You know I am because I'm excited. I'm excited about it because I
call me
love that
a
kind of thing.
call me a hypocrite, but yeah, I'll watch.
Yeah,
I'll bitch about it afterwards, but I'll watch.
yeah, that'll give us plenty to talk about too.
Oh my word.
Oh, I can't
Jim
wait.
Cornette's Jim Cornette's head is gonna explode.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, so our final subject that you had suggested, and you you had sent me something about this too, the roast of WrestleMania, which is something they had never done before, hosted by Tony Hinchcliffe. And for anyone who doesn't know who Tony Hinchcliffe is, he's a comedian who I personally don't think is funny. But he has I can't deny his success. I think he really kind of got famous through being a part of the Rogan sphere, a comic who would go on Joe Rogan and still does occasionally. And that's probably how he initially got famous. But he also has a
Right.
very successful show called Kill Tony, which I've seen, which I find unwatchable. But it has gone from YouTube to now. Kill Tony is actually now on Netflix, which is part of the reason why Hinchcliffe was afforded the opportunity to appear and sit in on some color commentary recently. Was it on Raw?
Yes.
Or Smack? It was
That
Raw, yeah, and it
that
was
that
dreadful,
it was not good. I
just
was not a fan.
dreadful. So I'm not a fan of Tony Hinchcliffe. But yeah, so they did this roast. Hinchcliffe was the host, right? He wasn't just one of the
Yes,
comedians.
he
He
was.
was the actual host. But you can't watch this. It's not on Peacock or on Netflix or on YouTube. They intentionally didn't film it. I guess there's leaked audio, right?
And video.
And video. But of course the roast concept is, it's really no holds barred with the humor. I'm actually a fan of roasts. I haven't watched the
I
roast in a long time, but I like,
I am. I love the roasts.
yeah,
Um, I just some of the jokes that were said, and when you pro wrestling fans always try to get one over on the company.
yeah,
Unfortunately for pro wrestling fans, I mean, unfortunately, they
yeah,
always want to feel like they're getting one over. So when WWE said we're not gonna show this, we're not gonna record it, it'll never be seen. Of course, every fan was going to record it and put it on YouTube.
yeah. Well, they were
Um,
taking cell phones, right? When you went in, they would take your cell phone, but of course, if you hide it well enough, they don't know you have a cell phone. That's really
right.
easy to get around anyway, right? Because you just bring two cell phones and you just give them the one that you're not actually using, and then that way you're able to sneak the other one in. It's the easiest thing in the world to get away with. What's
I
that?
have a continual glucose monitor.
Yeah.
Because of this, you cannot take my cell phone away from me.
Oh, no kidding.
Cannot. It is synced to my cell phone.
I'll be
It's
damned.
recording data.
So legally, they can't take it from you.
They cannot.
Wow. Interesting.
If I'm sitting in a movie theater and I'm checking my blood sugar and they come to me and tell me to put my phone away, they are in violation of ADA.
Wow. Interesting. Huh.
They cannot do it. Now, obviously, if I'm sitting there recording it, the
Yeah.
movie, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
They can tell
But
you not to do that, but they can't take your
the
phone.
moment I point and say I'm checking my blood sugar and show them the monitor, they have to walk away and they have to accept it.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay.
So in theory that works,
Yeah.
but in practice it's not practical. But look, uh, I as much as I love him and he's one of my favorites,
Yeah.
I think some of the things Paul Heyman said at this roast and some of the things he said on the Pat McAfee show warranted a suspension.
Really?
Telling a Hispanic male that you're eventually going to be deported in today's climate
Mm-hmm.
is wrong. To sit there and make light of an alleged rape case to get heat is wrong.
Mm. You think he
Um,
went too far?
I think he went way too far. And I would never there there's a difference between too far in society and too far in pro wrestling. You get a lot more leeway in pro wrestling.
Hmm.
And I think by pro wrestling standards, he crossed a line. I was uncomfortable watching him on Pat McAfee.
I haven't actually watched it yet. I've only heard the audio of it. I haven't watched it.
I and people some people are saying, "Oh, when people chanted you suck and he said your mother taught me how." That was wrong. That's been said for years.
Yeah.
That's I didn't have an issue with that.
Right.
I had an issue with pointing out a Hispanic male, calling him uh Jose, I think he called him,
Hmm.
and then told him he was going to be deported.
Yeah.
In the societal climate we live in right now
Yeah.
was in very poor taste. I think to talk about a married woman's vagina that is not a part of the company anymore was wrong.
Are you talking about at the roast?
Yes.
Who?
Paul Heyman made jokes about Maurice's private parts.
Oh, Maurice. Yeah, the Mrs. wife.
Hmm.
Maurice. Yeah.
To uh, to say Shayna Baszler has a penis.
But in the context of a roast, though, I mean, isn't that the deal? Like,
I I think you have to look at overall context, at least from my point of view.
yeah,
Shayna Baszler is someone who the IWC has really targeted because of her looks.
I've never noticed. I'm a fan, by the way. I like Shayna Baszler.
I am not, and it's not for her lifestyle choices, her looks, or anything like that. I think she rode Ronda Rousey's coattails
Hmm.
to her spot, and I don't like that. But hey, get your spots when you can.
Yeah, yeah. I became a fan of hers in NXT. I liked her in NXT.
Um,
She did do a couple of promos too where she wore a Kiss shirt. So there's that bias that I have.
well, maybe she paid Gene. Maybe that's why she hasn't been on TV. She paid Gene Simmons 12 grand to be his roadie. Um, so anyway, moving on. I mean, just some of these jokes. Um, the worst one was Paul Heyman saying, "We need another wrestling promotion like Freddie Prinze's father needs another hole in his effing head." For those of you that don't know, Freddie Prinze Sr. committed suicide.
Yeah,
Um, Freddie Prinze was in attendance. He had to hear that
yeah,
joke about his father. I have
yeah.
lost
He
a
used to
loved.
work for WWE.
Yep, I've lost a loved one due to suicide.
Yeah.
My half brother Douglas hung himself from the rafters of a trailer.
Wow.
That struck a really big nerve with me.
Yeah.
Um, I I think that this roast was in poor taste. It was very ill conceived. Um, and I mean, some of these jokes are outside the realm of good taste in a roast.
Well, that's a. I mean,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
look how
It's a roast. It's like it's gonna get vicious.
how much how much ball breaking was there? And I know you probably remember this when Jimmy Kimmel said Flavor Flav that Chris Benoit was a better father than Flavor Flav.
Oh, Jesus, he said that at.
The
I
roast
assume.
of Flavor Flav.
Oh
He
wow,
said Flavor Flav was responsible for more homeless black kids than Hurricane Katrina. Seriously, Chris Benoit is a better father than you.
wow.
I get, and
But
you know what?
it's a
Full
roast.
dis full disclosure, I laughed
Yeah.
when he said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But goodness gracious. Afterwards, when I thought about it, I was like, "Ugh," that
Yeah.
and he said it like a month after the Chris Benoit
Yeah.
murders.
Yeah.
I mean, there are in look, everyone's line is different. I just think that this was one of those ideas you had that somebody in the room should have said, wait a minute,
Yeah.
let's maybe not.
They put
Let's
themselves.
they
They put
put
them.
the
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
they put themselves in a very bad position with
Well, that's
this.
what I was going to say because it's a no win. It's a no win situation because so if on the one hand, these jokes, I mean, they do go pretty far, and so they're taking a lot of criticism for this. On the other hand, if they had not if like Heyman or anyone else had not done some of these jokes and it were much tamer, then they'd be getting pilloried for, oh, you said it's a roast, but instead it's just a bunch of people telling jokes. There's no edge to it. So there's really no winning. And Eric Bischoff said on 83 Weeks, he said, this whole thing was more trouble than it was worth. Why did they even do this to begin with? And I bet you they don't do another one. This was probably a
No,
one and done.
no. And Eric Bischoff is spot on in that.
Yeah.
In
Like,
that
why do this?
why? It just made no sense. I the moment I read about it, I'm like, this is not ending well.
Yeah. And it's,
I'm, I yeah, yeah. I just had this thought of impending doom when I read it.
well, it's also weird too, like to do an event like this, but it's not being recorded for, I mean, I'm sure the company recorded something, but to not, because even, other roasts, they run on Comedy Central or wherever, but for the company to invest resources into doing an event that's not even going to be broadcast, and in fact, after the fact, they're going to try to suppress any bootleg versions of it showing up online. It's like, why? That's completely, I mean, that's the opposite of anything of the way they would approach any other event. It's bizarre. It's really strange.
Yeah, I don't have I I just think it was poorly executed, and I 100% agree it'll never happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably it for the roasts. Um, well, we should I think we should probably begin to wrap up, and I'm looking
Yes.
forward to getting this posted and getting this out on the podcasting platforms, and
Yes.
looking forward to next week already. So
Yes, next week. We've talked about him a little bit. We are going to talk about the career of CM Punk. Um, I think for me, a little bit more, don't want to say knowledgeable,
oh, definitely, you
but
know more about him than I do. You've been a fan longer
um,
than I have.
just, yeah, yeah, just quite the career. And, you talk about a guy that you look at him and you're like, there's no way this guy should be successful in WWE. And
Hmm.
it's would be Philip Jack Brooks.
Hmm. Yeah.
But somehow, some way, he is and he was and is.
Yep.
And he's had pitfalls, and we're going to talk about, a lot of stuff with him, and
Yeah.
just this idea of what the prototypical WWE superstar is, and that he isn't it, but somehow he found a way.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I will be able to tell I've been there live for some of his biggest career moments.
Hmm.
Um
He's also somebody too who I'm a very big CM Punk fan. In fact, I mean, I have my all time favorites like Macho Man and Bret Hart and everything. But I've also got my current like who's active now, and my current favorite is probably is CM Punk. Um, but I have some criticisms of him too, and I can I can say, well, I love him and I'm a fan, but that doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything that he's done. Like, putting one of his coworkers in a front face lock is probably not a good thing to do. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation too, because he's done some
I
things that I might not agree with or that you might not agree with. And there's so much to dig into with him.
I mean there is I will say when it initially happened, when I read about it, I
Yeah.
didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the video,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you shove me going to, I'm probably just going to punch you in the face.
Right. Right. That's true. He did show enough restraint not to punch him. But
Yeah.
we can
Like,
get into all that then.
oh, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, he's such a fascinating person. So
He really
we'll have
is.
plenty to talk about. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. This has been fun. I mean, and, allow me to invite people. If you have any ideas or something you want us to talk about
Yeah.
from pro wrestling, let us know. Drop a line, leave a comment. If you want me to talk less, say something. If you're like, can we get someone else to be a part of this? Feel free. It's really open. Unless your name is Jose from New York, then no, we don't really care about your opinion.
No, but I look forward to hearing him complaining about us in one of his videos because
Oh,
he will
oh,
when he sees this.
oh man. Oh, he'll be our biggest fan.
He'll claim it was his idea.
Oh, it was his idea. Yeah,
He probably
He
knows
made
Vince Russo.
Austin. Oh, bro, no doubt, bro. I No doubt. I think between the two of them, they have half a brain.
Well, one of them knows how to write, though, how to actually write things down.
I have not seen evidence that Vince Russo knows how to write.
I remember Cornette talking once about Russo, like he writes, but he's a terrible speller. So they'd get a script that he'd
Nah.
written. I know you don't want to talk about Vince Russo, but I just think this is funny. Have you heard Cornette talk about this? Like they'd get a script that
Oh
hadn't
yeah.
been proofread yet or anything, and it would have all these misspellings because he couldn't spell.
Like I said, I have not seen any evidence that would lead me to believe Vince Russo can write.
Yes.
And, until I see it, I have seen autographed photos of his, Sal.
Okay.
Which he can spell his name, which I'm pretty sure his wife had to teach him that.
And he can probably spell bro.
I would hope. I mean, you might have to spot in the B and the O,
Right.
to get it, but
Yeah.
yeah. No, interesting stuff, definitely. I mean, the great thing about this is there's so much that we can talk about
Yeah.
in the annals of professional wrestling.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I would call this a successful I don't know what episode to number this. What number was
One,
the last one
well,
back in
no, well,
2019?
it's a relaunch, so we're gonna go the comic book route.
Yeah.
Whenever DC or Marvel does a relaunch,
Yeah.
they just start with number one.
Okay.
Don't complicate things.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Because it would suck to try to do it like based on whatever the last episode was, and then later we find out
Right.
that there were actually more
There's like
episodes that you forgot about.
yes, I was just gonna say that like I go back and Austin like messages me at like 3:03 in the morning and is like, yo, there's two episodes that aren't on SoundCloud. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that would be horrible.
really?
Yeah.
And then yeah, we have because I'm like so anal about media. I would
Yeah.
have to go into this whole thing and, oh, I'm sorry, this is actually episode. No, we're just going to start with one. And if Matt and I become famous, Austin, we'll cut you in.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All right, that sounds good. Well, thanks everybody. This has been the episode 1 of Tough Bumps, and we'll talk at y'all next week.
Tough bumps we take, we rise again. Blood and grin, it's how we begin. Matt and Erich fire up the flame. Wrestling lives on the Tough Bumps name.